My name is Sienna Hart. I'm 22 years old, first-generation college student, founder of the Early Sense Project, and the girl my parents once called resourceful, when what they really meant was disposable. When Logan opened his Bayshore acceptance letter, there were cheers, hugs, and champagne. When I opened mine, there was silence. No hugs, no questions. Just a glance and a sentence that bruised deeper than it sounded. We're proud of you, too. Two. That one word told me everything about my place in the family. He got the toast. I got the plate duty. He got legacy. I got lectures on return on investment. But I didn't break. I built. In the corners, they ignored. In the hours they slept through. And today, I stand on the stage they never imagined I'd reach. Not to prove anything to them, but to honor the girl who never stopped trying, even when no one clapped. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments. And if you've ever been the one they forgot to celebrate, stick around, because this is what it looks like when the invisible one finally becomes undeniable. I had waited 2 weeks longer than him. Every morning felt like walking a tightrope, waiting for that envelope from Bayshore to land in our mailbox. And then, on a cloudy afternoon in March, it finally came. A slim, cream-colored envelope with a tiny crest in the corner. My heart pounded so hard it made my fingers tremble as I peeled it open. Congratulations, it began, and I barely had time to process the word before I turned to show it to my parents. They were in the kitchen, standing by the counter with their coffee mugs. Mom glanced at the letter. Dad didn't even look up from his phone. "Oh, that's nice, sweetie," she said, her voice light as air. "We're proud of you, too." Two. The word stung even before it made sense. I stood there, letter in hand, as if I had walked into the wrong room of someone else's celebration. No hugs, no smiles, no champagne. I remembered what Grandma Martha once told me on the porch when I was 13 and feeling invisible after Logan won a school award for most charismatic student. "Brilliance is often born in quiet places," she'd whispered. "Let them overlook you, then outshine them." I kept that sentence folded in my chest like a bookmark. Later that evening, Logan's letter came. I was upstairs reading when I heard him shout, I got into Bayshore too." This time, the house roared. Chairs scraped the floor, footsteps pounded on the stairs, and I heard glasses clinking before I even made it out of my room. They were already pouring champagne. Dad lifted Logan into a hug. Mom wiped tears from her cheeks. It was surreal, watching the exact same moment. Only theirs was in color, sound, and celebration. Someone had even lit the little fireplace in the living room. A neighbor came by with homemade scones. They played music. Logan beamed in his Bayshore hoodie, even though it still had a price tag dangling from the collar. Dad made a toast, talking about legacy, business acumen, and the future of the Hart family. I was in the background. No one asked if I'd also be attending Bayshore. No one seemed to remember that I had gotten in first. Later, Mom pulled me aside briefly as she passed me a plate. "We're proud of you too, sweetie." That word again. Two. I retreated to my room. On the nightstand sat the blue notebook Grandma Martha gave me when I turned 16. The leather was worn at the edges, the clasp slightly bent. I opened it, more for comfort than curiosity. The first page read in her tight cursive, "Write your dreams here. Then go make them happen." I ran my fingers across the words as if they could warm me more than the heating vent by my bed ever could. Downstairs, Logan was posing with his champagne glass, someone taking photos with flash. I sat at my desk, pen trembling slightly in my fingers, and wrote, "They saw him. They never saw me." I didn't cry. Not even a tear. There was no room left for that. I sat like that for a while, frozen between ache and resolve, until my laptop pinged. An email. The subject line read, "Confidential, Martha Hart Memorial Fund." Confused, I opened it. Attached was a document, a legal letter addressed to me. Grandma Martha had left a separate scholarship fund in my name, specifically for any scientific or biomedical pursuit Sienna chooses to follow, regardless of family input. I stared at the screen, breath caught in my throat. They never told me. They knew about this, and they never told me. We've decided to cover Logan's tuition in full, Dad said calmly. As for you, well, you're resourceful. The words clinked against the wine glasses like an invisible crack. I glanced up from my barely touched risotto, the lemon zest turning bitter in my mouth. Mom nodded with a smile too tight to be genuine, while Logan stared down at his plate like it had suddenly become the most fascinating object on earth. I blinked. Sorry? Dad leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms with a polished sense of authority. Your brother's program has a heavy business focus. It's an investment. Yours, well, engineering is admirable, of course, but it doesn't offer the same ROI. ROI, return on investment. Like I was a stock. Mom reached for her wine. Sweetie, you've always been good with figuring things out. Scholarships, grants, all those lab contests you win. Which you never attended. I cut in, my voice flat. Not even once. Silence folded over the table like a heavy blanket. Outside, the Vermont spring was thawing the last patches of snow, but inside, the air was colder than any April frost. The kitchen light flickered slightly, the hum of the refrigerator louder than anyone's breath. Kylie's text buzzed in my pocket. Are they backing you? I didn't answer. I looked across the table at Logan. He wouldn't meet my eyes. His fork just kept moving, pushing food from one side of the plate to the other. His silence hit harder than Dad's words. So you're investing in him, I said slowly, deliberately. Not in me. That's not what we said. Mom interjected too quickly. But it's what you meant. Dad didn't argue. He just pressed his lips together and picked up his glass. Toasting, I suppose, to the decision already made. I stood up. Thank you, I said, my tone too calm even for myself. I think I understand everything now. And I did. I understood the hierarchy, the unspoken belief that charm would always be more bankable than quiet effort, that sons inherited ambition while daughters figured it out. My hands didn't shake as I walked away from the table, not even as I climbed the stairs and closed the door behind me. But once alone, I stared at the blank walls of my room like they were keeping secrets from me too. Grandma Martha's scholarship letter sat neatly printed on my desk, waiting. I pulled out my laptop and opened the Bayshore confirmation email. The cursor blinked next to the field that asked, "How do you plan to fund your education?" I typed the name of the trust. The system prompted me to upload proof. I attached the PDF and clicked submit. It was done. They didn't want to invest in me. Fine, I'd invest in myself. With what Grandma left behind, with what little belief I had left, with all the silent grit they'd never bothered to notice. I opened my diary, the one I kept hidden behind my calculus books, and flipped to a fresh page. I wrote, "I'll make them see me without ever having to beg." While Logan joined frat parties, I stocked books in the library and cleaned lab glassware. That winter, Bayshore's campus was soaked in gray. Rain misted over brick paths and turned the edges of my thrifted coat damp. Most students dashed between buildings with branded hoodies and dry-cleaned resumes. I carried a secondhand backpack stitched at the seams and lived on energy bars, cafeteria leftovers, and the thin thread of stubbornness. Mornings started with the coffee shop, afternoons buried me in the stacks of the library, and nights belonged to the labs, rows of glassware I washed silently under flickering fluorescence. My fingertips stayed pruny from soap and cold water. I existed somewhere between deadlines and coffee, just like Kylie once joked. Only now she didn't find it funny anymore. "You slept 2 hours. That's not a badge of honor, Sai," she said one morning, waving a spoon of microwaved oatmeal at me. "It's a symptom." I shrugged, zipping my coat. "Symptoms are what I study, remember?" She rolled her eyes. "GPA's not going to matter if you pass out in the lab," I didn't answer. I had a shift at the library in 10 minutes and a group presentation on protein folding due at noon. And after that, I had a date with my physics TA's impossible problem set. Logan's Instagram lit up around lunchtime. A new post, him in a beach chair, drink in hand, captioned, "Working hard or hardly working." Spring break, I turned off my screen. That afternoon, after my shift, I dropped my latest essay on Evelyn Moore's desk. 10 pages of permeability equations and sensor arrays applied to early-stage carcinoma detection. I'd spent 3 nights refining it, adjusting assumptions, running simulations on my dorm laptop that wheezed like it had asthma. The next day, Dr. Moore emailed me directly. Subject: see me. Body: Office 4, 12B, 4 p.m. E. Moore, I almost didn't go. I thought maybe I'd made a mistake, misused a formula, missed a unit conversion. But at 3:58, I stood outside her door, heart drumming behind my ribs like a metronome with something to prove. She didn't look up when I knocked. Enter. I stepped inside. She was reviewing a stack of papers, red pen flicking like a conductor's baton. Without glancing up, she said, "Who taught you how to run permeability calculations like that?" I blinked. No one. Then how? I studied older data sets, saw a pattern the algorithm missed, tried adjusting for dynamic flow variance. That made her look up. Slowly. I've had graduate students butcher this for years. You cracked it over a weekend? I didn't answer. I wasn't sure if it was a trick question. She pushed her glasses up. We're expanding our research team. It's sensor tech focused on non-invasive early detection. I want you on it. My breath hitched. But my jobs, rent, meals. You'll have to cut your shifts, she said bluntly. This will demand everything. Are you ready? I thought of my parents' kitchen, that dinner table in Vermont, the silence, the way Logan's success came with confetti and mine with quiet dismissals. I thought of Grandma Martha's blue notebook sitting in my drawer, the words inked across the first page. Write your dreams here, then go make them happen. I met Dr. Moore's gaze. I've survived worse. This question mark, this I'm built for. The invitation said family weekend at Bayshore, but I guess I wasn't part of the definition. Orange leaves swirled like coasting paper birds across the stone courtyard. The wind smelled like cider and distant bonfires. Bayshore's campus buzzed with laughter, welcome signs, and parents dragging roller bags through the halls. I stood at my dorm window, watching it all from behind the glass. My phone buzzed. Logan's name lit up the screen. I let it ring once, twice. I picked up on the third. Yo, guess what? He said, voice too bright for 8 a.m. Dad got me a tag heuer for making the dean's list. First real watch. Congrats, I said, keeping my voice flat. He didn't notice. We're all heading to the brunch at the alumni hall. They decked it out. You should swing by if you're not busy. Busy. The word echoed longer than it should have. I looked around my room. Bed unmade. Conference notes scattered on the desk. Coffee cup 3 days old. My only guest this weekend would be my reflection. I'll think about it, I said, and hung up. That afternoon, my fingers scrolled through photos I didn't want to see. Logan had posted a series. Him with our parents, all smiles, all matching Bayshore merch. Captioned, "Grateful for the people who always believed in me. Family weekend." My stomach tightened, but I didn't let it twist. I was used to being the ghost in their narrative. Then came the moment that cut sharper than I'd prepared for. I ran into them outside the main lawn. Logan was beaming, dragging Dad by the elbow and pointing toward the student center. Mom was wrapped in a gray cashmere scarf, clutching a coffee cup like a prop from a magazine. They didn't see me at first, but when they did, Mom's face flickered. She turned to Logan and said, "Darling, your little sister is here." Sister, not daughter. I nodded once. Dad gave me a thin-lipped smile. Looking well, Sienna. I said nothing. I didn't need to. The silence spoke clearer than any greeting. That evening, I sat in the dim light of my room, eyes aching from rereading old notes. Kylie popped in, holding 2 mugs of cocoa. "Thought you could use something warm," she said, placing one in front of me. "You coming to the film screening later?" "I'm not really in the mood for people." She plopped on the edge of my bed anyway. "Then let's talk about something that matters, like the email from Evelyn." I blinked. "What email?" She grinned. "She asked me to make sure you check it. Now." I opened my inbox. Subject: Confidential early stage FDA collaboration from Dr. Evelyn Moore. Body: Our sensor data passed preliminary benchmarks. FDA invited us to submit for early stage review. Also, MIT Biomedical Conference, November. I want you to co-present. I didn't breathe for a second. The room faded. Just those words remained, pulsing like a second heartbeat. Later that night, I found myself in Dr. Moore's office, the hum of the lab below vibrating faintly through the floor. She looked up from a tablet and set it aside. "I've watched you navigate these years with strength I rarely see in people twice your age. But we're nearing the edge now, Sienna." I waited, unsure what she meant. Her eyes were calm, sharp. "Are you ready to be seen, Sienna?" For the first time, I didn't hesitate. "Yes, and I'll make sure they have no choice." They showed up with flowers and pride they hadn't earned. They arrived 10 minutes before the ceremony began. My parents, Cynthia in pearls and a blush blazer, David in his best pressed suit. Logan trailed behind them, sunglasses perched on his head like a misplaced crown. They stood out the way people do when they're trying too hard to blend in. I watched from the side of the stage, out of view, as they took their seats in the second row. The flowers Mom held were pink roses, my least favorite. Her smile was practiced, perfectly poised for a camera that hadn't turned toward her yet. The Bayshore Grand Forum shimmered in the early May light. More than 1,000 chairs stretched across the courtyard, the grand screen behind the podium glowing with the school's insignia. A drone hovered above, filming the scene for the live stream already climbing past 8,000 viewers. "Ready?" Evelyn asked from behind me, one hand on my shoulder. I nodded. My gown was heavy with the weight of 4 years, of library shelves, lab glass, sleepless nights, and every "you're resourceful" that had tried to pass for love. But around my neck, the honor ribbon gleamed, deep red with a gold stripe down the center, reserved for research distinction. Evelyn walked up first, voice warm and confident. "Good morning. Today we celebrate not just graduates, but trailblazers. Among them, someone who challenged not just textbooks, but expectations. Co-lead of the Early Sense Project. Please welcome our keynote speaker, Sienna Hart." There was a beat, half-second silence, and then applause rose like a wave. My name flashed across the massive screen. Behind it, a short video began to play. Clips of our lab, sensor prototypes lighting up under simulation, test results showing anomaly detection at stage 0 of carcinoma. A still frame zoomed in on a slide titled, "Principal Engineer, Sienna Hart." Logan stiffened. His phone slipped from his hand into his lap. Cynthia turned to David, eyes wide, lips parted but frozen. The applause didn't stop. Kylie stood off to the side, phone steady in her hand, tears blurring the edge of her camera lens. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her look said everything. "You did it. You were never invisible." I stepped up to the podium. The microphone caught my breath for a split second before I began. Some of us weren't born with spotlights. We had to build our own stage and wire it with proof, not pity. Silence, the kind that leans in. I wasn't the loudest in the room. I didn't throw the biggest parties, but I learned to listen, to problems, to people, to possibility. I learned that when no one gives you a map, you draw your own. Camera lenses clicked. Many of you know me now as part of Early Sense. a project built from broken nights and stubborn hope. We didn't do it for applause. We did it because we believed people deserved better tools, earlier warnings, more time. I paused, scanning the crowd. Second row. My mother's smile was gone. My family is here today, I said, letting the words hang long enough. Some of them always believed in me, and one of them, my late grandmother, left behind more than a fund. She left belief. She left this note, which I carry every day. Your voice will shake them one day. Use it well. My throat caught, but I didn't let it break. So this is me, using it. A standing ovation. Feet shuffling, hands clapping. The drone camera panned the crowd. It zoomed. My parents' faces appeared, stiff and unreadable, framed in the center of the live stream. The comment section lit up beneath them. That's her? She's amazing. Her parents look stunned. Good. She built her own light, 23,000 views. I stepped down slowly. The applause was still going when Evelyn met me at the edge. She leaned in, barely above a whisper. They'll never unsee you again. They came to find me after the ceremony. But this time I wasn't waiting. The air in my apartment was still. Quiet. Summer had begun its slow bloom, curling light through the windows and painting long shadows across the hardwood floor. My gown hung over the back of a chair, the red and gold ribbon folded neatly beside it. Everything was calm, intentionally so. There was a knock at the door. 3 sharp raps, a pause. Then 2 more. I opened it to find them. My parents. Cynthia held a bouquet of tulips this time. Yellow, my favorite. Finally, but too late to matter. David stood beside her, arms crossed but eyes softer than I remembered. Behind them, Logan shifted awkwardly, hands in his pockets, his shoulders hunched like someone not sure if they belonged. We wanted to say congratulations, Cynthia said first, the smile rehearsed. You were incredible. I stepped aside wordlessly, motioning them in. The apartment was modest. A couch, 2 mugs in the sink, the scent of citrus cleaning spray still lingering in the air. David looked around. Nice place. It's mine, I replied. That was all. We just wanted to, well, Cynthia cleared her throat. We weren't always fair to you. We didn't see everything, but we're here now. I folded my arms. I forgive you. Both their faces eased until I added, but I don't return. I don't go back to who I was, or where you left me. The room chilled a little, not out of malice, but clarity. Logan stepped forward. I owe you an apology, too. I looked at him. Older now, quieter. No frat boy bravado, no sunglasses. Just a boy who finally saw his sister. I was jealous, he said. You were always more. I didn't know how to deal with that. So I let them treat you like less. There it was. I nodded. Thank you for saying it. Before any of them could respond, the front door creaked open again. Kylie stepped in, holding iced coffee and wearing her signature oversized sunglasses. She paused at the scene, then took them off slowly. Oh, she said flatly. This is cozy. Cynthia blinked. You must be Kylie. Sienna's friend? Kylie gave a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The one who saw her the whole time, unlike you. David shifted uncomfortably. She's leaving next week, Kylie added, turning to me. San Francisco, I want you to come. Community health tech program, you'll love it. Bright minds, actual respect, ocean breeze. And no one there calls you resourceful, like it's a polite insult. I let out a laugh. Quiet, but real. At that moment, my phone vibrated on the table. An email preview flashed across the screen. Subject: FDA approval, Phase 1. Authorized from Dr. Evelyn Moore. Body: the patent is filed. You deserve every line of credit. The world begins now, Sienna. I didn't open it yet. I turned back to my family. My eyes met theirs, Not with bitterness, but boundary. I built this piece, I said softly, holding a glass of water, sunlight shimmering through its surface. And it's not for rent. They understood, maybe for the first time. I walked them to the door, gave one final nod, and closed it behind them. When I turned, Kylie was already packing her laptop into a bag. "You're really coming with me, aren't you?" she said. I looked out the window. The city beyond felt different now, like something I could walk into without apology. The phone rang again. I smiled. "Yes," I said. "Let's begin." They came to find me. And for a moment, just a brief, flickering moment, I wondered if that 18-year-old girl from the living room in Vermont still lived somewhere inside me, still waiting for a seat at their table. But she didn't, because she no longer needed a seat at a table that only offered crumbs to begin with. I remember the way my mother's voice trembled when she handed me those yellow tulips. It was the same kind of tremble people have when they realize they've misread the ending of a story they thought they were writing. The problem was, they were never the authors of mine. My father tried to soften the silence with words like, "Let's start again," and we didn't know. But the thing about being unseen for years is, your memory becomes sharp. Sharper than apology. Sharper than regret. So I offered them water, not wine. A quiet seat, not a celebration. Politeness, not forgiveness. I let Logan speak. I let him squirm his way towards something that felt like honesty. And maybe he meant it. Maybe he really had been drowning under their expectations too. But that wasn't my burden anymore. When Kylie spoke, it wasn't out of vengeance. It was truth, razor-cut and clean. "You missed her rise. Don't expect to ride her glory." I didn't flinch, because I wasn't the one on trial anymore. I watched my mother try to smile. My father nod, Logan lower his eyes, and for the first time I felt something strange, almost like pity, but it passed. My phone buzzed and the FDA email glittered across the screen like a final chord. "Phase 1 approved. Your name is officially listed. Congratulations." I didn't cry. I didn't laugh. I just breathed. Fully. For the first time in years, my breath didn't feel like it belonged to someone else's expectations. It was mine. Entirely mine. I walked them out. No promises, no hugs. Just a calm goodbye from a woman who no longer needed to be validated by the very people who once questioned her worth. That evening, I sat by the window as the sun dipped low. The air in my apartment was still. Outside, summer moved like forgiveness, not because it forgot, but because it chose peace. I touched the edge of Grandma Martha's old notebook. The last page still read, "Your voice will shake them one day. Use it well." And I had. Not through screaming, not through revenge, but through truth and time and work. Because while they were raising toasts for Logan, I had been building something no one could take away. Not even them. This wasn't just a victory. It was reclamation. Not just for the Sienna they ignored, but for every girl who ever sat through dinners where her name was a footnote. For every daughter told to be resourceful, while her brother was called a visionary. For every woman asked to prove again and again what others were given by default. They came looking for the version of me they thought they'd recognize. But I had rewritten her. And she no longer needed to explain herself. Justice didn't knock loudly when it arrived. It simply stood in the room, unflinching, wearing a quiet smile and a name badge with credentials no one could deny. She didn't burn bridges. She built her own city. Because the real triumph wasn't in making them pay, it was in becoming someone they could never overlook again. Like the last flare before sunrise, her truth didn't ask permission to be seen. It made blindness impossible. And perhaps that's the lesson. When silence is met with persistence, when betrayal meets resilience, the verdict may come late, but when it lands, it echoes for generations. If you've ever been told to be grateful while they gave your brother the spotlight, if you've ever sat quietly at a table while someone else got the toast meant for you, then you already know. Your worth isn't something they get to vote on. It's something you prove when no one's clapping. And one day, the very people who overlooked you will have to watch you rise. Drop a comment if this story hit somewhere real. Subscribe if you've ever built something in the dark, just to remind the world you exist. Because we don't beg for seats anymore. We build the whole damn table.